Hello, hello. How y'all doing? We are going to be continuing playing around with and experimenting with React Spring, which is a library that we can use with our React 3 Fiber WebGL models. That's a lot of acronyms and jargon. So, I think we're just going to jump right into it. We got everything pulled up. I'm going to go ahead and start the server right away. I did just upgrade my node and npm, which is why that comes up. So what we were working on last time is we have 3D text, and we were trying to do effectively animations using React Spring with it. And we had it doing things, but it was doing a lot of like transitioning in and out without, how do I explain it? There's that jump, and then it just keeps cycling depending on the events coming in. And I think what we effectively determined is we did actually switch to use operation right at the end. I forgot about that. So every time we set state, it's going to re-render. And we were basically re-rendering really quickly, and which is why these transitions kept triggering. So we fixed that right at the end. I was looking at the docs a little bit this morning, and I ran across a little note in the guides. I think that's what's happening. And effectively, there's this precision config item that we can use. Where is that? It's config prop. So on use Spring, there's a config. On use Spring. Okay, so we need to add config. Config. And it is precision. Like that. I believe that's it that we need to do. If I can spell precision right. And I think that's gonna hopefully get rid of that shift. Use state, use Spring, right? It is in use. There's the config and use Spring. Oh, what's that frequency? Oh. And this is actually, we were looking at this right at the end of the stream last time, I believe. Since we're effectively doing like Spring physics, it starts opening up options such as the mass and the tension. Which might be fun to play around with. Precision. So the default is 0.001. Is that, I'm presuming that these are, yeah, they're just numbers. So we don't need to set those as strings. It's still doing that jump. That is interesting. Okay. We might need to come back to that, but what we want to tweak here first is we've got the stream. So we've got a with a state change. And I mean, we're triggering two of them at the same time. We might want to change that. So Twitch stream is a channel coming from Effection, which hooks up with Twitch and Comfy.js. And a channel is something that we can subscribe to or we can filter on. So what we can do is we can say, we want to only we only want to get events that match a certain type. I don't remember what this actually is looking like though. So we're gonna have to do, let's start looking at our Twitch events to help. Oh, well, I guess we got the events here. Okay, so it is event. We are already, oh my goodness. Really? Alt tab just got stuck. Okay, that's weird. Okay, so we want to, we're logging those events out and we want to match on the event. So we want to say the event is going to match, I think we're going to say on chat for right now. Or on, is it on command? So if we would put in a command here, it is on command. And see, it's triggering multiple times. And I think it has to do with the re-rendering and it resubscribing to this. So we might actually want to like pass this down as a prop and have a component outside of this be pushing this in, so we don't trigger that as often. It's, I mean, it might make sense to do that. Use operation takes, I don't remember what this value in use operation is. Use operation ends up being kind of like a use effect in React. I think would probably be the closest thing to it that I would think about. Okay, so now we're not getting, I wrote a whole bunch of undefines, 25 and 31. 25, 30, oh, okay. So that, I mean, that makes sense because the initial state is undefined. So it should only come in once now, and it should only trigger once. And now if we would do a different command, we should see it do the thing. It's still interesting that that's triggering 3 times. I think it's because of the rendering in here that's happening. And we're doing some set state there. So like if we just don't even, if we don't set the Twitch event, it's not going to change. But I'm curious how the rendering, like we're not going to get events. We're not going to get anything now. It's just always going to be undefined. Hey, Nikki, it's good to see you. So as expected, it's undefined, but it keeps triggering. And I think it's because it's the render loop coming from React Spring. So every time one of these changes, it's effectively calling another render. In React, a component is ideally considered to be like view only stateless. And it takes values or props to determine the actual content. And you need something to tell it when to re-render if that content is changing. And that's the state piece. So anytime the state changes, it's going to re-render. So I'm presuming what's happening is this use Spring is effectively doing state changes. And those changes of state are what are re-triggering this component to re-render. And that render loop, I think, is what's that's the thing that triggers. Like I believe it's hooked into all the scheduling and whatnot in React. That render loop triggered by the like the state change is what's a lot of this is built on. So that means that if we do things like this, now anytime this component is rendered, I think it's redoing this. So like if we bumped this up to 10 seconds and we're not doing any state changes. So now the only state changes that could be happening should be within use Spring. I would expect us to see, well, let's oh, to 10 is fine. I would expect to see 2 logs to come up. So I think this delay is going to, oh, the delay is before it starts. So it's going to wait 10 seconds before it starts. We're going to get a log on line 30. This is immediately when it renders. This is the delayed after 10 seconds. And then when it reverses and transitions back out, that's another state change. So those 3 state changes are coming from React Spring. And I think that state change stuff is getting a little funky here. But I don't think that we really need. Do we need to be able to trigger a state change in this component? I guess we kind of do, because anytime this value changes, we want to actually change it. But I just don't want to continue to have to like resubscribe to this, I guess. So if we do this and we set a Twitch event, we should now have 4 logs at line 30. Well, 3 plus however many are actually triggered. And now we've filtered and we're only triggering when we run a command. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to use this 3D or this text 3D component and pull in events from Twitch and hook it up to this where somebody can do a command and we get something that shows up there, which now that I turn this off isn't gonna happen. We'll turn it back on just for viewing purposes. And if I reload this, the end goal is, see if it shows up there. So this will transition out now. There, okay, so now, yep. So the end goal is like nifty overlay, which we can hook up to any events coming out of Twitch. At least those that are supported by Comfy.js. Okay, so we've got the 3 events of it coming in and changing. So if we add in, if we do another command, interesting. So we're getting the command twice. I think we did deal with most of our issues though. Because before it was just like render looping basically. Seizure inducing types flashes. So I don't think we want the delay to be quite this big. We could probably say something like that. We want it to come in and out, and we want to set the model state. And I think we do want to actually set the model state here too. We can also match, so we're only matching on the events that are commands. We can also look at the args, and we can say the I wonder how this match command works. That might actually have to be a filter. Because, well, I mean, I don't know if I could do this. We'll try it. Args is, I don't think it's gonna like that. I mean, we can just do just commands, and we could say maybe I think we can chain these together to do a filter. We only want to do, we only want to get the events for the command .args 1 is equal to 3D. Should double check on what that value is doing for use operation. So if we go ahead and refresh, when it first loads, it's going to do this. Now if we do any command, it shouldn't work. I think it's only going to work if we say 3D with a value. So is that filter not working? So command args 1. Like, we're not getting any events now. Let's take that out. Okay, so we did Okay, so we're just doing match now. Oh yeah, we gotta type in a command. So did you figure out all of your WASM stuff, Nikki, that you were working on? args1 should be command. I wonder if we can't chain together the filter. We could try, say, stream.filter event. And we can do this, and we will say return true. So if I mean, it might just be a matter of the match and the filter not chaining well. So, filter. When it's going and you want to cancel the current calculation, you terminate the worker and create a new one. That's pretty nifty. That's pretty nifty. I feel like that's a good use case for WASM too. As in like using WASM in the context of a web worker. Like the use cases I feel like WASM would be useful for currently, I think it feels like a good place to put them in a web worker. It's really neat that you figured it out. All right, so if the event type equals on command and the args1 equals 3D, then we want it. So we shouldn't get anything with that command, and we're not. But if we do 3D, I keep forgetting like commands aren't actually shown there, which is probably a good thing. So now if we do the 3D command, what is that filter doing? It's not actually an event. And when I say event, it's like a Twitch event. So not. Okay, event and args. So we're just gonna log this whole thing out. And I'm presuming that if we return what did I goof up? Cannot spawn a child on a task which is running. Oh. I think it like me refreshing. No, that's not it. Okay, so what is that filter? What is that filter doing? So there's map. We've got a channel. We can do a map. We can do a filter. And we could do a match followed by a map. I was assuming that we could chain together things. Filter. See, like these are very simple values. Filter. And that match, I don't think, is actually the stream match function. It's just string. Like at this point, we're sending strings. So the value here would be a string. It doesn't have an issue with this log, does it? That song ended pretty suddenly. Okay, so okay, so it's definitely something with this log that I wasn't liking. Event type. Oh. Forgot to do that. What is Effection? Effection is a structured concurrency library. Drop it in here. And it's a way to manage. It's in the vein of what you could do with promises and async await, but it's built on top of generators, which gives you more control. And dealing with asynchronous and synchronous, but also the cancellation cleanup becomes a really powerful tool. And you can compose a lot of it, which is really nifty. So it's a way to kind of deal with asynchronous stuff and side effects, but in a way with a lot of control. With promises, you tend to, like, if you're doing a fetch, you just say fetch and do the thing, and like do the thing until you come back. But if you're doing 20 fetches all at the same time and one of them fails, you might want to just kill the whole operation. But there's no real good way to like kill all the ongoing fetches if you're using promises. But with Effection, you can. So with what we're doing with Effection here is we are setting up a resource. And I forgot we have this the state change there. I wonder if that's having anything to do with that. I guess we're not really seeing state changes there. So we have this thing called a resource, and the idea behind that is that we can create our basically initialize comfy.js as a resource, and we can do something like this where we can ensure that it disconnects when like the client unmounts. So like when we're not actually in need of this anymore, or if the page transitions to something else where it's actually not actually needed anymore, we can like cleanly deal with all the resources that are just hanging around. And what we're doing is any event that we're getting from comfy.js, we're dropping it into kind of like a queue. It's called a channel in here. In Effection, create channel. And a channel allows you to have multiple things subscribed to it. And when you make a subscription to it, you can also the return of a channel is a stream. When you have a stream, you can filter and only look at the events that you care about on that stream. So when you subscribe to it, you can subscribe to a stream of events that's only the specific ones that you actually care about. So we can sort of be cheeky about setting up our channel and just dump everything in there. And then wherever we need to, we can, when we're pulling this in, we can filter down to just the stuff we care about. So it's like it ends up being a very like dynamic queue. Is maybe the best way to think about it. Does that make sense? All right, so okay. Oh no, now we're getting stuff here. False and false. Event type and 3. Okay. So now we should be, if we would drop a command in here with 3D. Oh, it makes everything lowercase. Kinda. It's I feel like there's definitely room to like I don't think it's a thing the real high level is it's very similar to promises and async await. But if that is the end of your explanation, it doesn't seem like there's any value in switching to this over just using async and await. So I feel like there ends up being kind of the high level makes it not seem valuable, and to actually show the value, you have to like kind of explain a bunch of these things. But a bunch of these things are only problems if you've actually like they only seem like they're problems if you run into them. Like if you've tried to cancel a fetch, or you run multiple fetches and you want to cancel all of them based on one of them failing. There's still kind of ways you can work around it in promises, but unless you've had the issue, you really don't feel that pain. So I feel like it's in one of those spots where it's difficult to explain the value without going into an hour-long demo. All right, so you know what? I was checking event.type, so it's definitely not that, and we're gonna check the event.args. So I think we're actually gonna say we're gonna call this Twitch. I think that's gonna make it a little bit clearer. So the twitch.event needs to be on command. And then the args need to be twitch.args, and it is an array. So 0 would be the first, and the second one is going to be the value. Should be 1. All right, am I overlooking something obvious as I'm explaining stuff? I really want to get rid of that. That jump is just really bothering me. But all right, so if we just do a command with unrelated to 3D. Okay, now the first value is true, the second one is false. That looks good. So now if we do 3D, what's up? Hey, there we go. Do we have it? Is it showing up over there? Might actually need to refresh this. Refresh cache. Yeah, that jump is really annoying. So if we say Kind of nifty. So I wonder if you can't chain together match and filter. Hey, Jordan. It's good to see you. How are you doing? Yes. Long term, no. Short term, yes. White part is the web page. Bottom, I guess your bottom left is a browser overlay. So if I would go to just the code window, and we ran a command, and feel free to throw these in too. And eventually we can make it on the whole screen, but I didn't want to, especially since last time it was just repeatedly coming up. Hey Prince, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Yes, you have been getting into 3D quite a bit as well. I want to do Blender stuff and put it in here. I think that would be really cool. React Spring, React Fiber 3, hooked up to Twitch events. Eventually, we do have a model around here somewhere that we were playing with, a GOTF, and that is kind of representing what can eventually come out of Blender. Another tool you keep seeing called Spline. Oh yeah, I heard about this. Let's pull it up real quick. Got a little bit of time. I believe I've looked at this, but I haven't actually tried it. Have you had a chance to try it yet, Prince? Collaborate in 3D. Interesting. Okay. That's pretty cool. Oh, it exports directly to React. Okay. So the what we were using in our model was, I think it's actually written right into did we might have actually gotten rid of model, never mind. We were using this library, which is a CLI that will take a GLTF and create a React component out of it in a way that you have access to the meshes, so then you can do the animations and the mesh changes directly on the model. It's built on top of Three.js. Okay, cool. It sounds like similar vein. I would definitely be I would definitely be curious. Oh, I closed it now. Bumped that back button. I would be curious how, like, what these meshes end up looking like. I think that's going to be the tricky bit. If we're doing something out of Blender and we want to get a good GLTF model with animations that we can hook into here, I think that's going to be important. And if we look at this model that we had just grabbed off the interwebs, it's all kind of just one big mesh. It does have the animations, so we were able to do trigger animations from chat, which is fun. But I would definitely like to have more access to the meshes and be able to play around with that more directly. No, go for it. Try the 3D command out. There you go. I think eventually some of that'll be hooked up to channel point redemptions. But right now it's just chat commands, so have at it. I do want to figure out that jank though. It's supposedly is that the thing we deal with right now? I think this is doing effectively what we want. And we're getting this is a little bit weird that the events trigger multiple times, and I think that's a comfy.js thing, depending on when you initialize. I think some of these end up triggering multiple times. Uncertain. We're gonna need to come back to that and make sure we're not getting. I mean, it doesn't seem like it comes up multiple times, so I'm not too worried about it. But let's see if we can figure out this little bit of jank, because that's really starting to get on my nerves. And right when we started, I had pulled this up because I had ran across this as I was perusing the docs this morning to see if we could deal with this. And I feel like this has got to be it. There's a subtle jump, which is visible in this demo. Then I did look at this demo, and it seems to be doing very similar to what we're seeing. I think that's visible in the stream, right? Kind of does the little stutter right at the end there. What we're getting is definitely a little bit more than a stutter. But I think it's the same thing. And setting the prop to a value like this, you can notice there's no jump towards 0. So this is used to figure out how close to the endpoint when we can call this animation done. Oh, better. I wonder if you can you do like a default zoom in here? Because this is per web page, right? Yeah. Is there a default zoom? Zoom. Yeah. Okay. Now I don't have to keep remembering to do it. There we go. Nice. Okay. Let me know if that's big enough or if I need to bump it up a little bit. So they're thinking about a breaking change to deal with this, but you can use the precision. It could very well be that we need to be more precise in this. But I think a potential way to test this at the moment is if we go in the opposite direction and we say, let's just call it a precision of 2, and let's see if it really jumps. Because if it's really jumping, then I'm going to assume that I was expecting that to trigger it. If it really jumps, then I'm going to assume that we are looking at the right thing. What was that? I think we are looking at the right thing. Could it be janky because your text is too big for the area you've given? Yeah, and that's another thing that, I mean, we can write these with the expectation that these commands are going to have more defined text. Because right now it's completely open-ended and you can type a big long string of text. And it's not going to fit. So we definitely need to deal with that. And it could be something just with this 3D text too. Like how it did... how it determines like what the center point is. But there is also, now that we talk about that, we have a float. It could very well be that as it's coming in, it's doing the floating animation. So where it happens to randomly be in this little floating animation is also like there's the center point of the text. And if it's doing an animation kind of around that center point, that precision might be the center point going from A to B. Once we hit B with the center point, then it just stops. But that float might mean that it could be X or Y away from it, and that's could be where we're getting that jank from. So it is very potentially something to do with this text. So now it definitely came up straight in the middle. I wish I could make this a little bit bigger. I guess that might help. It's not doing the float thing. And if we take off the center, bevel font, it should show up in the... oh, look at that. So it wasn't the jank. It was the center. Now I'm curious if we put the float back in. And we also do have a camera position in there. So the position of our camera might have something to do with this too. So we put this center element, I guess you can call it, which comes from the helper library React 3 try. And I'm wondering if it's trying to recenter it. Yeah. We could probably bump down the precision. I don't know computationally if that makes an actual difference or not. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna close a bunch of these things. I think we've dealt with this. There's a cache in OBS, so I'm not sure if it's actually going to show up on the side there. I might need to manually refresh it. Go ahead and refresh it. Go ahead and try that again. I do need to adjust my... definitely less janky. You are not wrong. Okay, so I've got it on the full screen right now. It's going to be big. But if we do a test, it should... this is the... it's a HD version. So we potentially still do need that. It's interesting that it seems stretched. And we might still need to play around with getting it to center. And I don't know that using this is the way to do it. I think that was sufficient at the time. No, I don't know what. Number. Thanks. I was hoping you would tell me more than that. All right, we're gonna try this. I do have a meeting to run to in about 10 minutes, so we are gonna see if we can make this look a little bit nice, a little bit nicer than it is, and I think it's gonna be where we call it for the day. Okay, there we go. So there's the camera position is that we've got like a scene. And the camera position, we're dictating where that camera is in 3D space. I don't know how it determines how it sits, like how it's facing relative to the scene. It seems like it changes. Every time I refresh, I feel like it's at a different angle. All right. What we are going to do is we're going to pull up the React Fiber 3 docs real quick. And I'm proud of myself. I didn't goof up and say React Fiber 3. I don't think I did this whole stream, which I think is probably the first stream where I didn't goof that up. I always mix those two up. Let's look at the docs. Canvas takes a camera. Or your own camera. So there is a position. Field of view. Okay, so I've been specifying the position. I was thinking I had just passed in an array. I don't know that we need to mess with the field of vision or the depth. So field of vision would be, it's like an angle. We've got a camera. You've got a camera from starting here looking out. A larger field of view would be, you'd be able to see more. Smaller field of view would be a very small slice. So it's like looking through binoculars versus what would be equivalent, I guess. Put on a pair of sunglasses. It's not really changing your field of view. If you look through binoculars, it's doing the zoom, but it's also narrowing your field of view to a very tiny, small amount. And near and far, I believe that's just draw distances. So you can say, if we got a ton of elements on here, we might want to say, cut it off. We've got fog in there or something. You can't see anything past whatever this unit is, 1,000 of a unit. And then it's not actually going to try to draw the things that are outside of this basically box of viewability. I'm curious what the orthographic does. And I don't know if anything else is going to be helpful for us here. Camera shadows GL. What's GL? A different canvas renderer if you would choose to do that. I'm curious what an orthographic camera looks like. Or orthographic, true. Orthographic equals true. Probably can't even see it. It's like this big. Okay. I think if we do that, we need to play around with our camera position and such. Let's look at the 3 camera real quick, and then we're gonna end the stream. Thank you. That's not quite what I was trying to search for. Okay. We want to look at the position. Oh, I guess this is the position source. Okay, so there's perspective and there's orthographic. I wonder if they've got actually no views of it. Orthographic would be, yeah. So that link that Prince had shared, this, I always get fuzzy on the orthographic stuff. I think orthographic is like sort of the classic Super Nintendo, the older games where they were trying to make it feel 3D, but they were actually using 2D. I think those are considered, if I recall correctly, orthographic type views. So you're basically doing 2D scenes, but you're making it appear like it is actually 3D. And perspective, actually, when you see it, it's drawn in a way that the view sort of helps you judge the actual perspective, which is a little bit closer to what you would see with your eyes, with the naked eye. Aspect. Okay, I'm not sure what the aspect does, but all right. Well, I think that's gonna be where we have to call it. We got rid of the jank. It's coming up now, as we would expect with our events. We might want to still play around with how our events are dealt with. Maybe move them up to a component that is higher in the React tree than this. But yeah, it's looking pretty nifty. Happy Friday, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'm definitely going to enjoy some of the nice weather down here, or up by me. Guess it's all relative, right? Yeah. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. See you next time.